Well, good morning, friends. Welcome back to our little cottage here on the river in the far north of Idaho. It is currently early in the morning while I'm recording this because I am going to share with you how I take care of my small flock of chickens in the middle of winter. And so I'm just going to share with you what I do for their heat, for their bedding, for their food, free range time, etc. So I currently have a small flock of 7 chickens, and I have 2 different breeds. I have black copper marins and barred Plymouth rocks. They're all excellent layers. Right now, they're not laying so well just because we are in the dead of winter, and yeah, there's a little bit of a lull, I would say, usually. And then we do have some cold weather coming up. So we're supposed to get down into the teens, and usually that will affect their laying. Even though I do have a heat lamp in the coop, they'll still take a little break when there's that much of an extreme in temperatures. So, but one of the things that I do to support them is with what I feed them during the cold winter months. So I'm going to show you what I do to kind of give them a little extra nutrition and support during the cold winter months when maybe they're not laying as much. And I was really excited when Grub Terra reached out to me and asked if I would like to try their black soldier fly larva for my chickens and do a review on my channel. And so I have been using their black soldier fly larva here for a couple weeks, and so far have been loving it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But one of the things that I do is you can take just regular rolled oats. Now these are not fancy. These are your basic oats that you would cook for yourself for oatmeal. And I have this little dish here. This is literally one of those, the little tray that you put under a pot for plants. So I just use this. Yeah, it makes a really good dish for giving your chickens some the kitchen scraps and all the extra stuff. So I don't measure anything, just throw some oats in there. And then all you do is take and pour, this is boiling hot water. You're just going to pour some boiling hot water over it. Not a lot. And you're not really trying to cook the oats. You're really just moistening them and warming them up. And so you're just going to kind of let that sit just for a few minutes, and then you can give that to the chickens. And you can just give this to them straight up, and they will absolutely love it. I am also, and this might sound weird to some people, I'm also going to scramble up some eggs for them. Now, usually in the winter, I don't have a ton of extra eggs. Like, they're not laying a bunch to where I'm getting a ton. So, but if I do have extra eggs that aren't going to get used up, or they're getting kind of old and they're just not going to get used, you can absolutely make some scrambled eggs for your chickens, and they love it. And it's a great way to get extra protein back to them and some good fats and just some good nutrition and support in the winter. So I'm going to scramble up these eggs, and these are just going to go on top of the oats. And so I'll get these scrambled up, and then while those are cooking, I will talk to you a little bit more about the Grub Terra black soldier fly larva. And so this is a great way to get some extra protein, fat, fiber, some other minerals and stuff into your chicken's diet in the winter. Also all year round. This is a great thing to use when they're molting. It will help their molting time be shorter, and just help support them during that molting time. So far, like I said, I have been loving them. One chicken has started laying since because they've been taking a break. But since I started giving this to them, one chicken started laying again. Now, I don't know if that's exactly because of the fly larva, but anyway, I know it is supporting them. So this has protein, fat, fiber, calcium, phosphorus, moisture, and ash. And so just really, really good for them. And the other thing is too, is they absolutely love it. And so there are times when, I've let them out to free range and I need to get them back inside the coop. And if they know now that if I'm carrying this bag and I shake it a little bit, they'll come running. And I just throw some of that in their coop and in their little chicken run, and they'll just go straight in. I do have one chicken though. She's a little special. She still struggles to find her way into the coop. She's always been a little special. Her name's Gertrude. She's the only one I named. Oh no, I do have Debbie. Debbie is another one. She is, she's a little mean. So I have Gertrude, who's a little special. And then I have Debbie, who's kind of, she pecks. She pecks a lot. So anyway, but for the most part, they will all come running, and I throw that in there and they'll come straight into the coop, except for Gertrude, who for some reason, she always finds herself outside the fence and just cannot find her way back to the gate, even though all the other chickens are going right in. So you usually have to kind of corral her a little bit to get her in. But I love her. She's very cute. She just has some kind of like weird equilibrium problem, I think, but she is an excellent layer. She still lays eggs beautifully and is a happy little chicken. So she does good. Little Gertrude. I call her Gert. I call her Gert a lot. So another thing that I do to support the chickens is a heat light. And so I use a red heat lamp in the coop, and I don't have it in the actual hutch area that's enclosed just because it is very small and there's just not enough room for it. And they would actually probably bump it and it would just get way, way too hot. So it's outside. It's still in the coop, but it's in the little open area. And even with it being open to the air, it still provides enough radiant heat that it warms them. Whichever chicken is on the roost there, they get some good heat from that. And so I have that in there. It also helps with egg production. Now, red light doesn't help with egg production as much as if you had a white light, but it does still help a little bit. So if you're really wanting really good egg production in the winter, you'd probably just want to use a white heat light. I've used both and I like both. So it's just kind of personal preference. And so I use the heat light. Now, if you do have an enclosed coop, you want to make sure you're monitoring the temperature inside if you are using a heat light, because you do not want the temperature to get too hot. You do not want to overheat your chickens. And so you typically want to keep it around 40 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of ideal for them. So, okay, these eggs are done. So like I said, I'm going to throw these on top of these oats. And then, now I would also, if I had any extra like kitchen scraps, leftovers that needed to get used up, I would also throw this on here. So I just don't have any currently at the moment. So I'm going to take our Grub Terra Black Soldier Fly Larva and sprinkle this over the top as a delicious garnish. And I'm also, another thing I'm going to talk to you about is the water, because obviously here in North Idaho, it gets below freezing at night most of the time. We've actually had really weirdly mild weather this winter, and so the water hasn't been freezing, which is actually, I want it to snow and I want it to freeze because I love that kind of weather, but for my chickens, it's kind of helpful. it makes it nice because their water doesn't freeze. So, but what I'm going to do is fill this pitcher up with hot water and take it out to the chickens when I take them out their little treat here. So we're going to fill this up with hot water and then head out to the chicken coop. Good morning, ladies. You ready for some food? Okay. Here you go. There's some good stuff for you. Okay, so here I've given the chickens their little plate of food. And of course, they're going for the black fly larva first. They absolutely love that stuff. So here is when I give them their food, I'll usually open up the coop for them and let them come out and do a little free ranging if they want to. And so I always check their food, make sure their food is full, just their usual. I just use regular pellets for their food. And I'm going to grab their water, and their water is actually completely empty, which is fine because I'm going to fill it. But if this had ice in it, I'm usually going to dump it out, kick the ice out, and I'm going to put the hot water in. Now, if this was a really frigid time, like we were having a cold snap and the temperatures were below freezing, I would actually come out twice a day to check their water because it is going to be frozen. And they do have heated waters that you can buy to make sure that your water isn't going to freeze. I just don't have one yet. So someday I will have one. But right now I just use this little rubber, I don't know what you call it. They use it for livestock and stuff like that. Little rabbits and chickens. And I have to put a rock in it because the chickens will step on the edges and flip it over. So I always put a big heavy rock in it. And then I just fill it up with the warm water, and they're good to go for the day. Let me move this. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about was their bedding and what I do for their bedding in the wintertime. It's the same thing that I do in the summer, so nothing really different. I like to use the pine shavings. You get a big, bag that's like a big cube of it, and it's very compact, so it kind of, as you pull it out, it fluffs up. And I like to put a big deep layer inside the coop. I'll clean out the old and throw in a nice deep layer inside up here in the hutch, and then I also put a nice deep layer down in the bottom of the coop, because that is really the only place they're going to have a nice dry spot to walk. And so out in the garden area and the chicken run, when it's not frozen, it is just completely muddy and disgusting. And so I want to make sure they do have a nice spot where they can have just a dry space to walk. This is something I would probably want to do. You probably could do it every couple weeks, just depending. But this might be something I want to do, once a week, especially while the weather's going to be cold and we're going to have the cold snap coming through. But it all just depends. It depends on the size of your flock, how much they're getting it messy. Of course, because we're putting layer upon layer of this pine shavings in here, and there's also chicken poop in here, it's going to start piling up, but it's actually okay through the winter. But then, of course, in the spring, we really need to clean it out. And this coop is so light that it's really easy. My husband and I we'll just lift it up and just set it aside and dig out all of the stuff in the bottom of the coop. Now, this coop is not doing so great. It is still standing, but it was a kit when my husband bought it. It's about 4 years old now. And I don't know. It's a cute coop, but it is starting to really wear down and rot out already. So just not the best quality quality and not the most durable, I think, for where we live. Good. We even put a couple layers of stain on it before we put it together, just to hopefully make it last a little bit longer. And it's still, yeah. So I'm kind of wondering if we hadn't put the stain on it, if it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did. So anyway, very cute little coop. I love how it looks, but just not the best quality. So we have plans to build another coop for them this coming spring. And of course, my husband is a general contractor and owns his own construction company. And so he designs and builds custom homes and cabins. And so he, of course, is the one who I trust him to design my chicken coop. We're also going to be expanding my garden area. It's this little area back over here. And we're going to be making it, my husband said it'll be double. It'll be about double in size. So I'm very, very excited about that. I want a nice big garden. If you would like to give Grub Terra a try for your chickens, follow the link in the description box below and enter the code HOMESPUN10 for 10% off your first order of Grub Terra. Okay, so I thought it would be fun to make a quiche today for lunch. I have 8 eggs from my chickens that I have been saving up because they obviously are not, as I mentioned before, they're not laying very much at all right now. But I saved up some of their eggs and I thought it'd be fun to make a quiche. So I am going to make caramelized leeks, and it's going to have sausage in it and some cheese. If I think of any other ingredients, I'll probably throw them in there too. But first I have to make the crust, and the crust has to be pre-baked beforehand before you put the egg mixture into the crust. So I am going to start with the crust, and this is going to be an almond flour crust. So it's a bit of an experiment. I've never made an almond flour crust before, but you of course can use any pie crust that you would like for making a quiche. I do have my easy all butter pie crust up on my blog, homespunannie.com. That could definitely be used for this. Since I'm not really using a recipe for the quiche, I don't have a recipe written up that I can post. So just watch this and maybe you'll get some ideas, and it's fun. It's fun to experiment sometimes when you're cooking and just not use a recipe. If this turns out really good, then I will probably go ahead and write up a recipe for it at some point and post it on my blog. I'll let you know if I do. But anyway, let's have some fun and let's make a quiche for lunch. Okay, so for this crust, there isn't very many ingredients, so that's kind of nice. But to start, we need 2 cups of almond flour. And I just use this Anthony's. Okay, so 2 cups of almond flour, then half a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of salt, and then half a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, so I'm just gonna really get this all incorporated really well together. Okay, and now we're going to add a 1/4 cup of oil. The recipe calls for extra virgin olive oil. I'm actually using avocado oil. So throw in some 1/4 cup of olive oil and then 2 tablespoons of water. tablespoons of water. And then I'm going to start mixing this together. And unlike a regular pie crust, you're not going to actually roll this out, but you're just going to press it into the pie dish. So I'm just going to kind of get this going here. Now I'm going to use my hands. But you can see how it comes, kind of holds together in your hands. When you squeeze it. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now let's just put it into our pie dish. So move this over here. Oops. Okay, so now just making sure it's all incorporated. Make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And now I'm just going to press the dough out. And you do want it to come up the side some. And you don't want it too thick on the bottom. So you just kind of work it. Press the sides a little bit. I'm not sure, these might get a little crumbly. I just picture the sides of this getting a little crumbly, but we'll see. Okay, so once this is ready to go and your oven is preheated to 350 degrees, you're going to bake this as is for 12 to 15 minutes until it's just starting to turn a tiny bit golden brown on the edges. Then you're going to pull it out and you're going to let it cool. And while it's cooling, you're going to make the quiche filling. Okay, so the pie crust has been baked, and there's maybe the tiniest, smallest hint of golden around the top edge, but you really don't want it to brown at all. And you can kind of feel that it's like set up a little bit. It's still a little bit soft, but it's still very hot. So I'm going to get this onto a wire rack and let this cool while I am putting together the quiche filling. Okay, so for the quiche filling, the first thing that I'm going to do is brown up some sausage. And this is Jimmy Dean all natural sausage that you can get at Costco, the big, they have like a 3-pound, I don't know what you call it, tube of it. But I'm only using like half a pound, so I'm not using very much. I'm not even doing a full pound. So because I was thinking about it, and the pie crust is pretty shallow, and so I was thinking about the amount of filling that I'm putting into it, and so I'm only using half a pound of sausage. I'm hoping that's not too much. I maybe could have used a little bit less. We'll see how this goes. If I have a little bit extra of the quiche filling, I can always butter a separate little pan and cook it up in that. So even if I have too much, I can still cook up whatever I have extra. So I'm just going to get this started browning. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to prepare my leeks. And I have 2 leeks here. And these are from that local farm that I told you about in the last video. And so I'm going to get these chopped up, and I'm going to cut off these, the big green parts. This will go to the chickens, of course. And they will love these. So I'm going to slice them in half this way and then chop them up. Oh, they're so pretty. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like kind of an ombre type color of yellow and green and a creamy color. So pretty. And I want to do this fairly thin. And so I'm just getting this sausage browned up here. And it's not looking like there was a ton of fat coming off of the sausage. I'm going to remove it from the pan and add the leeks to the pan and caramelize the leeks. And I might have to add maybe a tablespoon of oil. We'll see. So let me get these out of the pan. So I'm just going to put a tablespoon of oil in. Doesn't need a lot. I'm going to throw the leeks in here. Just start caramelizing. And while those are caramelizing, I'm going to crack my eggs into a bowl. And I had to wash these eggs off because when it's wintertime and chicken feet are muddy, their eggs tend to get stepped on if you don't go get them right away. And the shells get pretty gross. So I washed these right before I was going to use them. Another thing you can do for your chickens is you can actually crush the shells of their eggs up. You know, just wash the shells, crush them up, and feed them back to them. But it's a really good way to replace some of the calcium that they've lost and just keep their eggshells nice and hard. So I'm just gonna whisk this up. And then to this, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of heavy cream. Well, maybe like a quarter cup. A little bit more than a couple tablespoons of heavy cream. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of salt, not too much, because the sausage we are adding does have some salt in it, so don't add too much salt. And also the cheese. I'm going to add Gouda cheese, and of course that has a little bit of salt in it, so just really go easy if you're adding salt. Just make sure you're not overdoing it. And then some pepper. I think that's about a cup, handful. Throw that in there. And just kind of mix the cheese in. So here's the leeks, and I'm going to turn the heat off. There was still some bits of the sausage in the pan, but these are definitely done. They're starting to get pretty brown in spots, so I want to make sure that I'm actually going to take them out of the pan so they don't get cooking, because cast iron tends to hold heat very well. I'm just going to throw these on top of the sausage so it doesn't burn. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is add the sausage and leeks to the egg mixture. Just toss those in there and get that mixed together. Okay, now I'm going to go grab my pan or my pie crust. So here is the pie crust that I made, the almond pie crust, and I am going to pour this into the crust. And as I said, I think there's going to be a little extra. I don't think it would all safely fit into this. So, and I can hear the baby waking up from her nap, so I'm gonna have to go take care of her real quick. But I'm gonna pop this in the oven. I'm not exactly sure for how long. I'm just gonna keep checking it until it's done, and I will show you the finished product. And I am just going to just a little bit of butter on my fingers, and I'm going to butter up this pan, this little, or should I say this little tiny vintage Pyrex casserole dish that I absolutely love. It also comes with, it has a glass lid that goes on it as well. But this little pan is the perfect, this little, I don't know what you call it, pan, casserole dish, is the perfect size for just a tiny, if you just need to make a small little side dish. I'm going to take the leftover here and throw it in the pan. And I'm going to pop this in the oven as well. And here is the finished quiche, and it turned out absolutely delicious. The crust worked wonderful. The only thing that I might change about the crust next time is using melted butter instead of avocado oil, because avocado oil really has no flavor. And so I think using the melted butter would add a little bit more flavor to the crust. But other than that, it worked great. I will put a link to the recipe I used for the crust in the description box below. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share with someone else you think would enjoy it. And I will talk to you guys in the next video.